Hello, everyone. Welcome to lesson or episode number 11. It's almost the end of September right now. Time is flying. Today is called Lead with Increase, how leader multiply value, loyalty, and grow through everyday interaction. So welcome, Elise, again,
Hi,
episode
Francis.
11.
Incredible. It's so exciting to be here. And today's conversation is so important for all of us, right? I mean, have you thought about how people feel when you leave them? Do you leave people feeling motivated and confident and willing to want to go and do great new things? Or do you leave them feeling insecure about themselves? So today we want to talk about what like how we leave people and what energy we providing to these people, so that we leave people with that impression of increase so that they go out and do bigger and better things.
Yeah, and we love our mentor Bob Proctor, and one of the things I like the way he says it, he says, we can do things in a certain way, or it's not about doing certain things, it's about doing things in a certain way. It's not certain things in a certain way. And that's really important because it's all about what we've talked about many, many times, a way of being. It's not in the action that we're going to make a big difference. So as leaders, we sometimes have a to-do list and we think, oh, we just need to go through the to-do list and it's going to be done. It's all right. But it's really about how we're doing these things in a certain way. And that way is the way of being. How are you being while you're doing those things? And so this is also a very good quote that I like that we're going to share right now. And it's from Mr. Wallace. And that quote is: the desire for increase is inherent in all nature. It is the fundamental impulse of the universe. All human activities are based on the desire for increase. And so for me, when I also read that quote, it reminds me of when I went to Vipassana, 10 days silent meditation. We had to observe our thoughts. But one of the key concept was that things are either growing or fading away. So when we're now thinking about our business, or we can think about, the culture in our team, is this something that's dying, or is this something that's actually growing, that's flourishing? It's becoming even more positive. The business is growing because it's never really constant. The fundamental thing of the universe, it's an expansion. So if we're
Mm.
not in expansion, essentially we're in dissension, or we're just decreasing. So it's a great thing to keep in mind, especially when we're talking about the impression of increase, because the goal, if we're with the essence of the universe, we're really expanding. That's our true essence. And so if we're
Mhm.
not, we got to do things in a certain way and change that. That's for sure.
That's so true. And I think often people think that their business or their kind of, their life or working towards their goals is kind of in maintenance mode and it's stable. But as you said, there's no such thing, right? You're either increasing and improving or you're decreasing. So if you're not kind of staying up with your competitors and you're improving the way you do your business, and increase the way your team does their business, then you're actually falling behind. There's no such thing as just standing still. Now, what you were saying earlier about the way in which we do things. So, you and I often talk about sales teams as examples, and I was leading a sales team back in South Africa in banking, and I remember we were launching this new product, and so we had like a group of salespeople, and we were very intentional about putting everyone through really good like training. And, obviously we were selling this to our existing client base in the bank. So everyone got exposed to, everyone had the same product, had the same training, had the same client base that they sold to. Yet some people sold multiples more than others. I mean, I remember we had a sales guy that was selling like 5 times more than some other people. And I've seen that in many different situations. And I'm sure people listening here, if you're in a team, you have that example. People that have access to the same resources, yet one person has way higher results than others. And why is
Yeah.
that? It's because they're doing things in a certain way, right? We've trained in the same. They may even have the same pitch deck when they speak to a client, yet they're building rapport differently. They're walking into the room with confidence. They, um, you know, the clients trust them, they want to work with them. That's the certain way. It's as you said, it's the way of being. It's the way that you are building those relationships with their clients, where they are choosing to do business with you. And those are the intangibles, and that's everything that we've been speaking about. That's what we need to do to be truly successful.
Yeah, and I've seen that the same, especially when I was working at Xerox, many, many times. Same thing. We would have some blitz, or I still remember two couple rookies that were working on a little project, and then you had this lady, and she's very successful. She's built actually a spa industry with 20 clinics, and now she's starting something about cold plunge. And at the time that she was working at Xerox, she was making her calls, same thing in the same territory, and she always won more than anyone. And if I now think about how she was very positive. She was someone that always saw more the possibilities as opposed to see the obstacles. You have some people, yeah, but it's not going to be possible. But she never saw that. And also, what's interesting is I had a conversation with my godfather last weekend, and he just said the he was working at 3M in the 80s, and what they were doing is that they were changing people after 6 months to a new territory, just to have like just to change things up, because for some people they say, oh, there's nothing in that territory. We
Yeah,
have
yeah.
exploited everything. They're like, hold on a second, and then they would put a new person in that territory, and all of a sudden there's way more sales. So I totally relate with that story, because it's not about what they were doing, it's really how they were doing it in a certain way. And the other thing that came to my mind when you said that, there's a great book that I know many people might know about, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale
Mhm.
Carnegie. And there are things that are so easy to do to just lift the energy in a room. And it could be as simple as saying people's name. It's a melody to everyone's ear. Like, just
Yeah.
to, when you meet the person at the reception or anywhere else, you just call their name. And that's so easy. And it shows that you care. I love that one. I kept it so many times, because when I'm traveling, I go to different places where the language is different. But if I just say, ¿Cuál es su nombre? Like, what's your name? And then I just mention their name, the service that I get, the extra is unbelievable. And I don't do that as a strategy. I do that because I'm really curious. And that's also another way of being.
Absolutely. And it shows people that you see them, right? It's not just that they're providing a service. And if we think about, the exceptional leader, you must think about how you make people feel. Are you leaving people every interaction when they're feeling more capable and inspired and valuable? And you and I often talk about, helping our teams understand the purpose. And I think people really relate to you when they feel that it is authentic, that there is this energy about you where you are like really inspired by what you and your team are doing, and you want to bring people along. And for us to be really effective at sharing those messages with our teams, it's about having this energy around us of, I want us to succeed collectively, and I want you as an individual to succeed. And that's when you become magnetic, right? That's when people really want to follow you and choose to follow you. I think gone are the days where people have to listen to you because you're the boss. You want people to choose to give you that discretionary energy, so that they really start making a difference to you and your clients. And I think when people see that you are the optimist, the positive person, the person who's always looking for opportunities and the way that we can improve ourselves as leaders and our organization holistically, that's when people choose to follow us. And that's when people get excited about it, right? They want to work with you and they choose to work with you and your team.
Yeah, and there's a story also that I have, is about a sales instructor that was at Xerox, and her name was Maggie. And so it's totally in line with what you're saying, because Maggie, when she started at Xerox, she was, as per what she said, is that she was not technical at all. Like, she didn't even know the products. But one thing that she was very, very good at is that she cared about her clients so much. She was so curious. So she would just go to the clients and say, ask all sorts of questions, which is a very good thing to do according to How to Win Friends and Influence People. And she would ask the question and see how can we improve. And she cared about them, and then she'd come back at the office and share all of those things to the product specialist, and the product specialists were all in awe. They said, "You got all that information from the client?" She's like, "Yeah. Is there anything I can do with this?" They're like, "Yeah, we can help them so much." And then they came back. They had the, now the product specialists, the technical people would come and just talk to the clients, and they loved Maggie. They loved her, and she would just find all sorts of ways to increase the business, existing business in the at the client, just because of her way of being. She would, you look at this quote, feeling that making them feel valuable. She valued her
Mm,
clients. The clients valued her back, and she was able to really truly improve their process and their workflow so that things would go smoothly. So anytime that Maggie would come, everyone would be happy. And so it's just showing that it was not even the doing of the technical thing, but the certain way that
mm,
she had about herself and her way of being is that she was excited, she was curious, she wanted to help, and people felt it. That's energy, and all of a
mm.
sudden she was one of the most successful people there is at that time.
Incredible. Yeah, that's
And
amazing. And these are such simple things to do. I mean, if we just try to make it practical, ask yourself when people leave you, and when they leave kind of a space that you were in, are they feeling better about themselves or not? Are you the person that is looking for the good in a situation, or are you looking are you the person that's looking for the problems or the negatives? Because people want to be around people that make them feel good. Most of us know the Maya Angelou quote that says, "People forget what you said, but they don't forget, though they remember the way you made them feel." And it's so important to remember that you want people to feel good when they've kind of left your presence. So are you being sincere? Are you finding ways to praise people? Are you looking for something that they do really well and giving them that compliment? Are you giving them your full attention, something that is so precious these days, your attention? Are you giving them your full attention when they speak to you? And are you looking for ways to uplift them? Imagine every time someone speaks to you and they walk away, they're like, "Man, I feel good. I'm like energetic. I'm going to go and do my job. I'm so kind of motivated." Imagine you did that to every single person you interacted with every day. I mean, what an incredible impact that would have on everyone around you.
yeah, and I'm sure some people can even think about some of the people that are doing the contrary. As soon as they see them, they're like, there you go. The blame's going to come again, or the critics, condemnation is going to come, and that is really against the principle also of Dale Carnegie: never criticize, condemn, but really ask people's questions. Start with their best interests in mind, and if you're really thinking about their potential, instead of seeing whatever the mistake is, but more as an opportunity to learn and really say, how can we improve this? I mean, I know that I've had great managers that made me feel good. Even if I made a mistake there, I knew
Mm,
that what the purpose of that was, let's improve next time when we're doing the sales call. What can we do to do better? Like, what are the things that we can actually maybe do beforehand and that you can start to implement, and so that you watch your sales grow. And you can feel that. You can totally feel someone that's more about checking and, you did something wrong, like next time do this, as opposed to someone that really wants your success, and you can feel
mm,
that.
mm. Absolutely. And as you say, people can feel that because it's you investing time in other people when you sit down and go, "Hey, Francis, like that was really great. But you know what? I've identified two things you can do to really make it exceptional." That most people that want to be successful are looking for ways to improve. So I think when they sense that you're doing it in a sincere manner because you really want them to be better, I think it'll be really well received because that's again investing time and energy in someone. I care enough that I want you to improve because I know that you've got bigger goals, and this is the way that I can help you, kind of leapfrog and improve your actions and your impact.
Yeah, and we have a practical action before we go to this one. Actually, it's really a summary of it. But and I challenge anyone watching right now. I mean, I'm just even going to stop sharing because I just want you to be fully present. I've done this exercise many times, and the exercise is that we are doing a round of acknowledgement for all of the people in the room. And the acknowledgement is not something that is, oh, you do a good job, but really specifically saying why this person has done something incredible. And we've done this. One point, I was in a dentist. clinic, and all people started to talk about what they appreciate from each other. And it was a love fest, really. At the end, a lot of people, like, the tissues were out, like people started to cry, and they said, "Oh my God, I didn't even know that, oh, thank you. I appreciate
Mm,
this. And this was I appreciate from you." This exercise is one of the best exercises I know to leave an impression of increase and improve the culture of the company, because there are so many things that people are doing well, and we don't stop to really say, "Hey, hold on a minute. I just want to acknowledge you for the last time you talked to this employee, the way you were talking to this person, it's totally in line with the values of our company. You made the customer feel so good. And as a matter of fact, we got a testimonial back. I just want to say you make a difference in this company.
mm,
And every time that you show up, you're bringing sunshine to the office." So imagine you receive that from
yeah.
everyone, and not only the manager, but all the employees. And then each and every one was just doing the round table. I mean, actually, another advice on that, allocate more time than you think. You might think it's going to take half an hour, but hey, it's the time to share the acknowledgement, share the appreciation, spend an hour on this, and I promise the culture is going to be so high after that they're going to just be so happy to come to the office, really.
Mm. That's such great advice. I love that.
And then we had a practical actions that we just said, but speaking belief, the practical actions that you guys can do right now is just speak belief into the others. Really, is instead of doubting themselves, and give sincere and specific praise. That's very, very important. And be present when you do it, because that's you're giving your gift of attention. We talked about the calmness, how it makes a big difference last episode. And find ways to serve and uplift them without expecting something in return, which is really, really important.
Mm, absolutely.
Yeah. And then we also have another quote here that I love, because that, to me, for any founders, business owners, or CEOs, are the same thing. You can succeed best and quickest by helping other people to succeed.
Mm,
That is so important. Instead of focusing too much on ourselves and our business, actually, I think I heard lately somebody said, "I didn't feel good, so I decided to help someone else." So
oh, nice.
so I decided to do volunteer work, whatever, and then you come. That's an impression of increase in your own life. You're giving of yourself, and that's the same thing. Instead of worrying about the success of your companies or yourselves, how about you help someone who feels successful? It
Mm,
is kind of shifting. You talked about it the other episode as well. Are we building a cathedral or just doing our job? If we're
yeah.
building a cathedral, we have a vision. That's something that's exciting. And we go out and we have a purpose. And the purpose is really to help our clients. And in banking, like you mentioned, you're making a big difference in people's lives. Money is a big thing in our lives. They can buy a house that could be their place to build memories. So now if you start to shift that and really say, you know what? Enough of my little party that's not so good. I'm just going to choose to help someone today. That's what I'm going to do. And that's absolutely going to help your company to grow.
Mm. And it reminds me of kind of the principle of you get what you give, right? So helping others, sure, it's helping the other person, but you're always getting something back. You're getting back the appreciation from a person. You're getting back like the sense of really doing good. And I think people often forget that. There's so much that you receive while you're giving. And it's such a great feeling, and it's just making everyone better, right? Something else that came to mind was, as we're focusing on leaving people with this impression of increase, it reminds me of the principle of like impact versus intent. And I think as a leader, often you have good intentions, right? You have good intentions with something new you want to roll out, or a change in strategy, or a change in culture, but you must remember that the impact is different, right? The way in which people receive this is different. So I have a new client that I actually spoke to yesterday, and he is undergoing this huge culture shift in his organization. And I got to him yesterday and I was like, how's it been going since we last spoke? And he was just like, he had like his head in his hands. He's like, it has been absolute chaos. There's people like leaving, the team is upset. Like, I think when there's a big change in an organization, often it almost like gets worse before it gets better, because he wants to make quite fundamental changes in terms of the culture and people's kind of commitment to the organization. He's a new CEO, changes needed to happen. So a lot of people are feeling a little bit uncomfortable. And he was just kind of like at his wit's end. He's like, I'm not actually sure what to do. And I said, like, when last you just go and speak to your people? Like, just informally tell them, hey guys, like, I know it's hard. I know this is feeling uneasy. This is where we're going. This, like, paint the picture for them, help them buy into what you're doing and where you're going. And help them understand where you are. And I said, you don't have to have all the answers. I think it's more authentic and sincere when you go, I don't know everything and I don't have all the answers, and show them a little bit of vulnerability, but I want you to know that this is the vision. I want you to know that this is where we're going. And I want you on board. You're an important part of what we're doing. Each one of you are valued, and I want you to be part of this, and give me feedback, right? So if something isn't working, what are your concerns? What do we need to do differently? And I said, just having that conversation with your team just helps people understand exactly where you're going, because let's be honest, people are having that conversation anyway, right? It's always those like water cooler talks, or there's some concern, or he even said, when I mentioned that to him, he said, someone actually came into my office saying everyone's been talking, and this guy actually like had was brave enough to come to the CEO and say, hey, this is what's going on. Should I jump ship? Like, is this thing kind of going under, or like what's happening here? And I said to him, look, as much as we try and avoid these things, those conversations are happening anyway. So you may as well go and be upfront with your team. And he was like, yeah, but I don't have kind of everything in place yet, etc. Anyway, so we had this conversation, and I left, and like 2 hours later, he texted me and he was like, do you know what? I went into the yard where all the guys were. I had the conversation. He was like, I am so grateful that I had it. Everyone was so appreciative that I took the time. That was like just an informal, let me connect. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. And he was like, that was really scary, but it's the best thing I ever could have done. And he was like, thank you for kind of pushing me out of my comfort zone. But it just shows you how important that is. And I think so often as leaders, we're so stuck in the detail, right? We're fighting fires. There's lots of pressure. The board is phoning you. You've got like client issues to deal with. But it's so important to create that space, right? Get a little bit of perspective, and then understand what that impact is on the rest of your team. Are you making sure that you are taking care of them as well, because they're such a big part of your business. So I actually encouraged him today. He was supposed to travel somewhere, and I said to him, how about just taking like 3 hours for yourself? Don't be in the office, don't take calls, just go and sit and decide where you want to go with this company. And our best thoughts are happening when we're quiet, when we're out of the kind of routine treadmill, just kind of doing whatever is urgent, urgent versus important. And we so easily forget that. But I think it's important to remind ourselves of these things, because that's when you realize that, there are these really important people that we need to go and speak to. You need to go and create that impression of increase. You need to get your team and help them come along with you. And that's when you build that really strong culture that makes organizations exceptional.
It's a beautiful story, and there's so much gold in it because, one thing that came to my mind when you said that, first off, is that sometimes, just like you said, we don't have all the answers, we don't have all the data, and we just got to make a decision, and regardless of where we're at. And that's one of the things that I've learned so much over the last year, is that the first most important thing is to ask ourselves, what's the vision? And based on the vision, what's my decision? What do I choose to do right now? The rest is going to come. So, you didn't have all the answers, decided to go in a yard and have an informal conversation, which led to so much more camaraderie, culture increase, maybe even information that he didn't know about that will be extremely useful for the future. So I actually acknowledge his courage to do that, to make that decision, and and of course, you had a beautiful advice, and which leads me to talk about some of the attributes of leadership, which is also part of the impression of increase. We're talking about courage. It takes courage to make an impression of increase sometimes. And so I'll give you a little story that came to my mind this morning. It was about this CEO. Maybe some people, it's a very good case of leadership, transformational leadership. The name of the guy is Paul O'Neill, and he came in the 80s, I think 1987, at the top of Alcoa, which is an aluminum company. And so for 100 years, everything was going very, very well. But for some reason, at that time, the industry was kind of not going well. And so they needed to do something very urgent. They needed to make a decision, bring back the profit. Things were not going well. So Paul O'Neill shows up at this investor meeting, and the first thing that he said, and everyone's waiting for cutting costs, reducing the overhead, how we're going to increase the stock price. And so here's his courageous decision. He said, "Well, we are here, and the one way that we will, improve this company is put safety first. We are industry leader, but I want us to be the best company in the world for worker safety." Apparently some of the people that say, "Is he nuts? Like, what is he doing? Like, we're gonna sell, let's sell the stocks now. This is not a good time." And apparently one person, I don't remember his name, he said, "I told everyone to sell, and it was the worst advice I given in my entire career." Because years later, actually, from this moment, and I'll explain what happened, but from the moment that O'Neill came in and on board and left, they said that the yearly income fivefold, went
Wow.
5x, and that he also increased the market value by $27 billion. And he was criticized at first because, it takes a bold courage decision to say that's what we're going to do first. So
Mm.
the reason is that he didn't even know anything about aluminum, but he decided to go in all the plants and really understand what's going on. And he also realized that every time that there was a death or something like that, the whole production will be stopped for a day. And he said,
Wow.
workers' safety is the most important, even after before profit. But what starts to happen if you do that is now operational efficiency increases, because now you're doing, even your product quality increases, because now you're really making sure that there's not going to be any death. He
Mm.
was asking everyone to give a report for anything that would happen. One guy, apparently in Mexico, missed, didn't want to tell what happened. He fired him. That was really the important decision to make. And so this little trickle effect of one decision led to a huge impression of increase, for the fact that also the employees now, they say he cares about us. This is great. Like, he doesn't want
Absolutely.
any of
Yeah.
us to die. And so and he said that's not good enough to be an industry leader and to just like go with the metrics of the industry. That's not what I want. I want to be the best in the industry. And thanks to that, like I said, like the revenue, the net income went 5x, and the market value went up by $27 billion just by this bold, courageous decision. It's
That's
unbelievable.
incredible. Yeah. And as you say, what message is that sending? It tells you that these people are the most important and he cares and he wants them to be safe. I mean, what better thing does anyone want to hear, right? That your company cares about you. And I think that message is so strong. And he must have gotten so much commitment from his people.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. And even though at first many people, like I said, they actually divested, like the stock value the day after went down big time because they say he's nuts. Like, that's the new CEO. We're not gonna follow that. But he had a strategy. So I guess the message in that is that sometimes, we know that there are some good decisions to make, and or we have it in our gut feeling, or we just know that this is the right thing to do, and that's where we need to be courageous. I think
Mm.
there's a quote from Earl Nightingale that said the opposite of courage is not cowardice, but it's conformity. So if you're just doing what everyone else is doing, well, if we're looking at the average is not so good for many many companies. So you got to make the bold decision and do something different, and because it's important. And another thing that we can talk about, I think, is the law of compensation, which is a beautiful thing that we're learning in this episode, because many people could complain about their salary and their compensation, but really, when you look at this is a law. This is just a very straightforward law and formula. The formula to make more money or have a better compensation is to ask yourself, is there a need for what I do? And for all of us, the majority of all of us working, or for the existence of the company, yes, there is a need for that. then now that's okay. So do I have the ability to do it? Yes, I do have the ability to do it. And is it difficult for you to be replaced? Is the company difficult to be replaced, or anyone or your company can be disrupted in a day? So now the question comes in is how can I increase my compensation? Well, it's only with number two, which is your ability to do it. Are you doing your best? Are you making sure that you come up with some of the best ideas to improve customer service, the customer delivery, improve the sales? Are you working on your ability, doing it in a certain way as opposed to do the certain thing, your
Mhm.
ability to do it? And that's how we increase the law of we increase our compensation.
Absolutely. And I think this, making yourself, and sure, everyone is replaceable, right? So you can't be completely like irreplaceable, but make yourself so valuable to an organization, to your clients, that they don't want you to go anywhere. And it reminds me of the idea of, creating or competing versus creating, right? So I think a lot of people are so in the sense where they want to compete and they want to be the best and I want to be better than you. And you're so busy focusing on the competitor or someone else that you're not focusing on yourself. And I think when you're really a professional and you really want to be outstanding, that's when you're actually only competing with yourself. You're always wanting to be better for you and you're challenging yourself to do things differently and better. And that's when you get really creative, right? It's not just grinding out more of the same. It's how can I do things differently? How can I really excel? How can I really delight my client? And I think that's when you're really opening up this possibility of like almost exponential growth when you're going, it's actually not about them. I'm focusing on what I think really needs to happen and what will be an outstanding, experience for my client.
Yeah, and another story that came to my mind about this and I love the way that you're approaching it by asking the questions of how can we do this, but you do want to do it because you want to help, you care about your clients. So there's a story that there's a big department store that had a policy about the returns, and the return is no questions asked, and this is how we do it, and that's how we serve our clients. There was another department store that said, "Oh, this is what they do, so we just need to copy that. And that's how we're going to be successful." They were copying the doing. They were not doing the certain way. So all of a sudden, they implement that return. Culture hasn't really changed. Clients are calling, "I want to return." The answer from the department store is like, "What do you mean? Like you want to return? Like it's okay." And so all of a sudden, it's not about copying what the industry is doing, because if you're just doing that and you're not doing it in a certain way, it's not going to work. So it's really, again, about doing things in a certain way. The way of being is our certain way, and that's really is the leverage for exponential growth, really. So we're coming to the end of this with the key takeaways already for an episode 11.
Mm. Okay, so let's focus on being growth oriented. Ask yourself every time you have like an interaction with someone, are you leaving them feeling better? Are you giving them this energy of increase where people are motivated and inspired and positive? And then focus on abundance. We attract what we give. So if you're giving good energy, that's what you receive. And make sure that we are always helping people, improve their talent and their trust in us as leaders. And then, remember that people remember how you made them feel. So every time you have an interaction with someone, ask yourself, did I make that person feel better? Did I leave them with this impression of increase? And are they now motivated to go and do and be better?
Yeah, and the another one that we have as a key takeaway, and maybe we haven't touched base too much today on this, but I think that when we say abundance is attractive, it's really, are we having a growth mindset or are we having a fixed mindset? That's how I see it. And we make decision normally, and we've been controlled and conditioned to think that we need to wait until the external circumstances are going to change, and that's how we're going to make our decision. But really, growth mindset and an abundance mindset is saying, regardless of what's going on the outside, what is my decision? What do I stand for? And things will change after that. And if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, really sometimes, if do you believe, we talked about the integration of belief with behavior, do you really believe that you're valuable? Do you really believe that your company brings something extraordinary in the marketplace? And do you really believe that your company is meant to grow? If that's the case, even if the external circumstances or the bank account, whatever is showing up on the outside is not there, if implied in your own subconscious, you know that you're going to be successful, then with growth mindset and abundance mindset, you're going to make a really powerful decision, which will actually give you the abundance. You're not going to be in lack. You're not going to say, well, I'm going to wait until this thing is happening before I make my decision. So that's what we mean by abundance is attractive. The more you have this abundance mindset, you're attracting more abundance to you as opposed to acting out of fear. We act out of faith instead. So, um, and we talked about how the impact of emotion is really important. The energy, the people that are coming in a room, they remember that from you. I'm sure that if you every time you're very positive on the phone and you're talking to your employees, or you're talking to your managers, you're talking to your peer, if you're someone that has a big smile on your face as you're talking, they're going to pick up the phone. But if you're someone that complains all the time and you're busy doing something, you're like, you know what? I'm not going to answer that phone. I know exactly what's going to happen. I don't need this. I need to have, I need to have a little bit more positivity. So that's the impact. That's the impact of your way of being. And as a leadership legacy, well, great leader build business, and they don't just build business, they build people. And that's true. Bob Proctor would say business is just an edifice with some furniture and like really a business is people. And if you have a great succession planning, you know exactly you form them because you care about them, you have great people, that's going to last for a long time.
Absolutely. Yeah, great things to think about. So it was great seeing everyone today. There are QR codes, so if anyone wants to connect with us and hear what we're doing, we would love to help you and your organization. And on the previous screen, we also had a QR code for the Google Doc. So for every lesson we have, we put a document together to give you some ideas of like some thought starters and almost like a little bit of exercises to really help you implement and understand exactly what we're talking about in these sessions. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Francis. It was amazing conversation. Really had fun having this conversation with you.
As usual, thank you so much. Let's leave an impression of increase to everyone around us, and we'll see you next time for the Thought Leader Thursday, episode 12. And thank you, Elise. Have an
Thank
amazing day.
you.
Thank you for being here.
Take care.